All right, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the CMMC, which is the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification webinar event that we have for you this morning. We have our Director of Growth and Innovation, Tom Andrelos, and we also have Rich Sullivan, who is our Advanced Manufacturing Technology Manager, both with MassMEP. And today with us, we have two of the representatives from Cybersaint, Patrick O'Brien and Derek Bauer, and Tom will introduce them a little bit later on and get them going, and they're a large part of the presentation that we have for you this morning regarding CMMC. For some of you that are new, if you've never used Zoom before, you will have a bar that gives you an option for a Q&A. So along the presentation, if you have any questions that you think of that you want to pop up and put in there, please do so, and we will answer them as we move along through the presentation this morning, and we'll make sure that we get all the questions answered. We also have a polling option that once Patrick and Derek start doing their part of the presentation, we have a couple of poll questions, and those are nice for us to get a gauge from you in the audience to see where you are in this process, as it is a little bit different of a process than most people are aware of. So knowing who's in here and where you stand during the CMMC certification process, it gives us an idea and helps them in knowing the information providing to you. So we're gonna get started and I'm gonna kick it off. So Tom, I'm gonna give you the floor.
All right, thank you, Haley, and thank you for coordinating this effort. And as we mentioned, Rich Sullivan is here, who will help us and guide us through some of the questions and answers, hopefully, when it comes to CMMC and 800-171. And we'll introduce Cybersaint in a couple minutes. Again, my name is Tom Andrelos, and welcome everyone to the CMMC certification. And hopefully this will start to position you folks around thinking and possibly getting ready for this activity that's going to be required in the future. So next slide, Haley. So today's objective will hopefully get everybody at an understanding level of what CMMC standards are, why we're created, why it was created, when it was released, a little bit of the timeline, although that continues to move a little, but I think we have a pretty good understanding of what the defense industry is looking at today. How will companies become certified? We'll talk a little bit about that and hopefully get you guys, folks, understanding some of the requirements. Then we're going to get into some of these MassMEP cybersecurity program solutions, funding options, as well as the value proposition we bring to the table that we believe is very unique to Massachusetts, with the partnerships and funding opportunities that we have within our own grasp in Massachusetts. Then I'll introduce you to Cybersaint. Cybersaint is a strong partner of ours over the last little over 2.5 years now. We've been working with Cybersaint on somewhere between 15 to 20 different cybersecurity projects with various companies in the defense industry over the last 2.5 years. They'll share with you their platform as well as how it links and ties 800-171 and CMMC into a compliance process that they deliver for MassMEP. So that's what you'll hopefully learn. What it is, pretty basic. You have the defense industry certification process. You have a measurement and a capabilities of industry, defense industrial base that needs to be protected, and that's based on the contractual information, federal level, as well as controlled unclassified information that needs to be maintained, controlled, sustained for the future. And this does require and will require a certification at various levels depending on where you are in the supply chain. We'll talk a little bit more about that activity in a few minutes. As we mentioned, you can build this out. There are going to be different levels, all the way from the basics to advanced. All of them are going to require different levels of controls, and Cybersaint will talk a little bit more in detail when we get to them in terms of the platform and how it's measured and how we intend to manage and help companies navigate through the different levels. This is going to be the basis of the auditable processes that take place. If anybody's familiar with ISO certifications, which probably many of you are, this will take an approach similar to that. I look at it as you have an independent auditor at some point in time will be coming in and reviewing the types of levels you are. The standards at the levels will be mandated by the OEMs. In many cases, they'll have a requirement around what level you'll need to be at. We'll talk about this in a second around where most companies will fall into in terms of the levels and the requirements. This is also going to be a basis of the future, meaning a no-go or go for procurement of future products and parts or products or sub-assemblies, whatever business you're in. But there will be at some point in time, and we'll talk a little bit about that timeline in a few minutes, but there will be a no-go or go procurement decision that OEMs will have to make, and more than likely will be mandated by higher-ups in terms of the procurement of products and services. Okay, next slide. I'm not going to get into all of the detail, but there's many different level descriptions. We believe that 90%, maybe higher, of the companies we work with in Massachusetts will only require 1 through 3. In some cases, some of the real lowest levels of the supply chain might only require a level 1 and 2, but we believe most will require and will position with the programs we have in place. We'll cover levels 1 through 3 in terms of readiness for CMMC. So keep that in mind, that's our objective, that's our goal, to cover as many as the companies we possibly can in them small and medium-sized enterprises. And we believe a little over 90% will be covered with level 1 through 3 and the options and programs that we have in place. I will soon talk in a couple minutes about those 3 different options and programs that we have, and then we'll get into one of them into a little bit more deeper dive when we talk about the Cybersaint model. Next slide, please. Okay, so why is it being created? Well, it's been going on for a little bit of time. At one time, 800-171 compliance was kind of the mandate in terms of getting companies ready and understood. And we did a lot of work in positioning MassMEP to be a supplier and a source for helping companies. And we did that through developing a program, developing partners, a product, and a service that we have now been delivering for close to 2 years. But there is going to be a framework for the cybersecurity defense industry base. The framework is intended to serve as an audible mechanism for all the appropriate levels, 1 through 5. As I mentioned, 1 through 3 is probably going to be the most popular in terms of requirements for most companies. And this will need to be established, 1, with the levels you are, action plans, program plans to ensure that you're maintaining, sustaining, and improving your cybersecurity practices within your factory. The CMC does ensure everyone is protecting their unclassified information, as well as the federal contracts that the supply chain is engaged in. All of this is going to be a trust but validate, so anything we do through level 3 will have adequate security control systems in place, or at least identified areas of opportunities to continue to improve and building out that roadmap for improvement to get to your level 3. This will be satisfactory to many of the different auditors as you start to build this out. Very similar to an ISO audit is my guess and my expectation that it'll be one. Of course, we know it's going to be an independent source of auditors that will determine your level and areas of strengths and weaknesses. Next slide, please. How will a company become certified? Well, they're working right now on an accreditation model at the defense level to assure that all of the certified CMMC auditors go through a process. They're certified and accredited on each of the firms. Those firms will then be the ones conducting, and companies will be reaching out to those listed and identified for their audit purposes. Companies will have to require at some point in time to reach out to these third-party companies and schedule a time for that that auditor, independent auditor, to come in and provide that service. Companies will be then awarded a certification at the appropriate CMMC level after the audit is conducted. And this is something to note. This will be public information in the future for all defense industry contractors and manufacturers to assure that once you have established your level of certification, that it is public and companies will be able to see that. Also to note, all companies at some point in time will be mandated to have CMMC certification. That certification will be, again, public. It will be noted on every RFP that goes out to future companies for business of the future. Again, I think this, developing this roadmap and understanding where you are, if I was in the defense industry, I'd want to be practicing and understanding these levels as sooner than later. You do not want this to somehow creep up on you, and this is my opinion, but creep up on you and become a backlog or an issue with RFPs in the future. So not a scare tactic, I think it's going to be somewhat factual that people are going to understand this. At some point in time, we may end up having bottlenecks even with the types of companies that can help support and deliver the services. So again, building that understanding and taking the time to do it is going to be critical for the future. It is in its final form, CMMC will recognize various cybersecurity standards. One of the nice things about this, 800-171 is going to be a big portion of the program. If you've gone through 800-171, this will be a good process and start for all of the controls that are in CMMC, plus CMC's new controls. So the combination of 800-171, the new controls in CMMC, which Cybersaint, our partner, is staying up to date with all of the new requirements, requests when it comes to the CMMC certification. Also, ISO 27001 is a very valuable tool. That is, again, 27001 is cybersecurity. A lot of companies, believe it or not, have taken that approach, even though it's a little more costly and lengthy in time and money. We do have some funding for that also, as well as the 800-171, and I'll talk about that in a little while. There are some companies that want to be internationally recognized in 27001 cybersecurity. Either they're parent companies that are, or they're doing business in Europe and places like that that take an international approach towards certification. So there is a place for ISO 27001. As I mentioned, I'm not sure if I mentioned, but we probably delivered about 7 or 8 27001 program certifications over the last 2.5 years. Next slide, please. We will have plenty of time for questions and answers. I might be going through this a bit fast, but hopefully I'm not. So this timeline, I didn't quite get a chance to update it, but it's relatively valid still. Our goal from January through June and now into August, we had a couple, a little bit of hiccups with the COVID, but we have been trying to hold webinars, and we're going to be picking up the pace a little as we go into the fall and early winter. But if I was to extend that, getting our clients ready and educating them, I would probably extend that out to January now. But our goal is to hopefully get people educated at an understanding level, at least about some of the guidelines, some of the requests, the requirements coming down. And this is going to be done through conducting information sessions. We also do one-on-ones with companies. We have a lot of website network activity and information that we can provide. And then just basic general communication with all of our field staff, which we have about 16 to 17 people, are well-versed as trusted advisors to provide that expert resource, provide and share the detailed solutions that we have, and trying to figure out what the best fit for each company. Every company is a little different. Every company might require one or three of the different types of approaches we have, and we'll share that. And then at the same time, based on the size of the company, the type of solution we provide, there's various funding options today at our fingertips that we can now help and support or supplement the assessments and the readiness of CMMC. So that's really good news. Next slide. All right, I'll talk a little bit about our value proposition, the solutions, and then the options in terms of a combination of funding and approach. Excellent, thank you. So our value proposition is something we've been building up over the last 2 years. And we find it to be a very solid, demonstrated, and results-driven value proposition. And that's been proven over the last 2 years. Our program connects NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which drives a lot of the standards for CMMC, as well as 800-171. It's a partner of ours, as we do get funding from that institute. It pays a lot of the services and field personnel and administrative costs that we have at MassMEP's, and we use them as the leaders when it comes to new standards and technologies or products and programs coming up. We also work with the defense industry via the Office of Economic Adjustment for funding opportunities, so that's also connected to NIST. The Cybersecurity Certification, CMMC, NIST sponsors this and leads it with experts across the nation, as there is 50 MEPs across the United States, and we all network or partner, or in some cases collaborate on various areas of funding. As an example, MassMEP is also associated with the New England Cybersecurity Collaborative, where we have funding opportunities and options that are available to various manufacturers in Massachusetts through the Office of Economic Adjustment. And then we have, and we pulled this together, as I mentioned, 2.5 years ago with Cybersaint. We partner with the experts. We're not going to be the experts in cybersecurity, but that's why we hired a company like Cybersaint. Their focus is on 800-171 as it started out. Now it's also CMMC, and it's linking the two together to build out the maintaining and sustainable platform that they have in terms of proprietary software. They've been very active in webinars, as well as delivering this value of service to many customers over the last 2.5 years. And we'll get into their platform in a few minutes. So we feel very good about the value proposition we built. We don't believe there's too many groups in Massachusetts that connect all of the dots to help provide the type of service we can when it comes to cybersecurity. The other piece of it that I probably should have in here, now that I think about it, is we partner with the workforce development. The state provides funding for many of the services that we have. And cybersecurity for Cybersaint and 27001 is a service and a funding opportunity that we will have to provide to our clients based on the size, the fit, and the need. Next slide. So if you look at MassMEP solutions, and we've had this model now, and it really hasn't changed other than adding a little bit of the CMC readiness now part of it. But we put this together 2.5 years ago. These are the solutions we provide. So we have something which NIST, the National Institute of Technology, did build way back, a C certification set of questions and information that is self-guided approach. MassMEP supports that self-guided. Rich Sullivan, who was here today, provides that service. And we call that the bronze because it only takes 6 or 8 hours. It's for very small companies. It's very far down in the food chain that doesn't have a lot of the federal contracts to deal with or a lot of the proprietary information regarding specifications and products and services that they might provide. So that's something that's available to us. We have delivered some, but it's not necessarily the go-to one, but it is something we have available, and it is funded. 50% of that is funded through an express grant through the state of Massachusetts. Then we get into what we believe is the core need, because it does cover CMMC readiness now, and that's a system security plan. It's bounded around 800-171. It meets the federal acquisition regulations requirement. It's proprietary software platform, so it can be done remotely, serviced and assessed. And it also positions us for CMMC readiness. That service is conducted by Cybersaint, which you're going to hear a lot more of. The next one, as I mentioned earlier, is the 27001 management system. That's an expert third party, Exalytic, that delivers that, and that's a security management system. And the nice thing about ISO 27001, it does tie to some of the 800-171. It doesn't touch on a lot of the CMMC at this point in time, but it is an internationally recognized, and of course ISO 27001 can be leveraged. If you're already 9001, you're probably close to 50% there in terms of ISO certification. So there's some pros and cons. Each one of these have costs associated with them. Each one of these have different grants associated with them and funding opportunities. The bronze, as I mentioned, this is the C-set delivered by internal MassMEP, self-guided, checklist-driven, provides some basic ratings and status. It gives you some basic reports, covers the policies, procedures. It meets some of the NIST CUI requirements. So pretty basic. Like I said, 6 to 8 hours tops. Might take a few people in the organization. Small organizations might need multiple people engaged and involved going through the checklist for answers and questions. Does put out some reports that tell you whether or not you're in the red, the yellow, or the green, where you might need some work. Pretty basic. Just to understand, just to go back, Haley, I can probably talk a little bit about the cost structure on the first one as we go through, because I'm not sure if I have a specific slide for that. This is about $3,600, in which 50% is paid for by the state. It's $3,200. I think it's $3,200, in which $1,600 is paid for by the state through an express grant. Next one, please. Our Cybersaint approach, which we're going to get in a little bit more. It's a platform. It's unified compliance and risk management through regulations, workflows. It's extremely comprehensive. It's a 100-page report because every single DFARS question has its own page in standard format around where you are, what you need to do, where you land in the rating of your company. Where are what's the frame of that? It provides a very strong framework. It it's driven by rules in the engine. So there's a lot of smart technology built into it. Has an action plan, recommendation, and costs associated with any of the products or products that you might need to help your company build out your infrastructure. Cybersaint is not an IT company. The reason we went with IT is because they weren't an IT company. They're a software-driven, cyber-strong security platform. They are not upsellers of hardware. They could recommend if people need hardware, they'll recommend in companies, but they are not associated with or drive capital expenses for companies. Many IT companies are out there, and I searched too many. Every company that I found, or many of the companies, were IT driven, and really they were in there to sell software upgrades and hardware. And this is the reason Cybersaint, I thought, was the supplier of choice when it came to an industry leader for specifically CMMC and 800-171. It has a lot of nice executive reporting, intelligence with actions, credible risk data validation system. So very strong, very good approach. We have many examples in companies that have gone through this process and have demonstrated very solid results, including nuclear detection companies to small component companies to assembly companies. So, next slide, and we'll get into more of that. Oh, I'm sorry, cost. Just going back to the costs associated with this. This is covered 50% under an express grant. The cost is $13,400, which 50% is covered under the express grant. So there is associated cost roughly $6,200 associated with your stake in it. Now, I am going to share something, but it's not unlimited money. There is some additional money from the Office of Economic Adjustment through the Collaborative New England funds that provide an additional supplement funding of $5,000 over and above the express grant. So the cost to the companies would somewhere be between $1,200 and $1,600. Don't quote me yet. We'll nail that as we go through it. But there's only a limited amount, and that limited amount is between 3 and 4 companies that qualify with at least a minimum of 10% revenue in the defense industry would be required. Something that doesn't have to be completely validated, but there'll be a level of trust that you do that much money with the defense industry. So there is an extra sweet spot right now in the deal, and that's something we have available between now and December of 2020. So, and that will be on a first, not necessarily first come basis, but companies that wish to look at it, they'll be, we'll go through a validation of our own internally to determine which companies get the additional 5,000. As I mentioned, it'll be between 3 and 4 right now. Exalytic, outsource solutions, doing business with them for 14 years. They deliver a lot of 9001 medical device certifications, and now 6 or 7 of these, 27,001 over the last 2 years. Very standard audible process, takes somewhere between 6 and 9 months to implement. The costs associated with this can be covered under an express grant, 50%. The cost is roughly, if you're already 9001 certified, the cost would be somewhere around $20,000 to $22,000, in which 50% will be covered. It's also covered under a general grant if you qualify for a general grant, and a general grant will cover 100% of the cost of 27,001. Criteria is a little stickier. It's got to be a relatively large company because it's a match with resources, etc. So a little tougher to get to, but many companies go the express route with 50% of the cost covered. It does not have associated OEA funding, as I mentioned, with the 5,000. Only the silver 800-171 that Cybersaint delivers today. So, all right, very popular. Right, next. Okay, yeah. So I'll introduce our partnership with CyberSaint. I'm not sure if there were any questions, but if there were, we could, Rich, I'm sure, will be answering some of those as we go along. And we can also open it up for questions at the end of this. I'll probably have one more slide, I think, after this, just kind of summarizing it. So our demonstrated platform is delivered by CyberSaint, and as I mentioned, a very strong relationship and partnership with them. Next slide, please. So just in summary, this is intended, the CMMC is intended to secure the national defense industrial base of suppliers. It will start to show up on RFPs in June. We have now heard that there were some companies starting to see some letters as well as some some verbiage in the contracts. All companies will require all DoD companies will require some level of certification at some point in time. That timeline, as I expressed, you really want to be positioned by 2021. Various standards will be combined and applied. Companies will be certified with accredited independent parties. Self-certification is not an option. Cost for the certification assessment and audit. This is always going to be the big question mark right now, and it still hasn't been determined how the cost is covered under those assessments that are going to take place by the auditors. The auditors, you call up, they come in. That question is still undefined at this point in time. Your certification level, as I mentioned, will be made public. If DoD suppliers do not get certified, the future may disqualify you from future RFPs and participating in the supply chain. And last, MassMEP is ready. We have some funding, as I mentioned. We have various solutions, and we have the resources to help companies navigate through this process. Okay, next slide. All right. Well, I'm going to introduce you now to Derek Bauer from CyberSaint, as well as Patrick O'Brien, to go through CyberSaint's platform and model, and hopefully we'll all learn a little bit more about what capabilities and how it's approached and the type of service you would get from them if we're hiring this company to help you with your CMMC and DFARS program. So take it away, guys.
All right, thank you, Tom. As Tom said, my name is Derek Bauer. I work in business development over here at CyberSaint. This is, I think, about our fourth meeting that we've done virtually now, third or fourth now. We did one in person as well. So we've done this a few times with them, and we've had a great partnership with them over the years. With me, I have Patrick O'Brien. Pat, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey everybody. I'm Patrick O'Brien. I'm account executive here at CyberSaint. I've been working with MassMEP for I'd say a little over 8 or 9 months now. Have run several of these engagements with some of our partners. So excited to speak to you guys, as I know CMMC has been picking up for a lot of folks around this time. Next slide, please. So I wanted to give some background quickly on our story, as well as just CMMC in general, a little beyond what Tom touched on there. So we were founded by a guy named George Wren. We're based out of Concord, Massachusetts, and right now I'm in our office in the Seaport in Boston. But he left his position as Chief Security Officer of Schneider Electric, largely because he was handling some really difficult challenges around completing these risk and compliance assessments. So I speak to people who are running these every day, and typically they're looking at doing it through spreadsheets or are performing these through spreadsheets. It's a very manual process. There's a lot of deliverables, especially within CMMC, that you need to give now to become certified and build out, that are long reports, and we'll give you some examples as we get into it. Before I want to kind of hop into things here, I just wanted to give a little bit more background. So Rich had mentioned that approximately 600 billion of intellectual property is lost annually due to really foreign nation states attacking our lower level suppliers within the DoD supply chain. Initially, as many of you probably know, they rolled out DFARS and pushed that out to the primes to really have them police their supply chains and ensure that they were cyber secure and compliant to that framework. What happened was the primes, and some of you may have seen this, really pushed out attestation reports down to their suppliers. They got together with their lawyers and realized they could shed that accountability, and nobody was really policing this issue. The DoD obviously had to change their approach, so they created the CMMC Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. So there's 5 different levels, as you guys know, and we're helping folks become certified on that. I know it's picking up a lot now, and we're looking forward to working with you guys here. So with that, we can hop to the next slide.
All right, so just a quick overview of our platform. We'll get into it a little more in depth as we go along here, but just a quick overview here. It's a control question in natural language. You'll see a slide of that soon, just kind of breaking it down high level right here. It's, it's making it a lot easier to understand as you guys go through the platform. It's automated reporting, so we will be building out reports for you guys in the system as you enter in the information, answer to the certain controls. It's AI-backed remediation plan, so we'll get into that a little bit more as we go along too. Just kind of giving you the right path to get on track of reaching the compliance level that you guys need to reach. And you can manage your own supply risk chain assessment. So like I said, we will get into that a little bit as we go along here, but just a quick overview for you guys.
Next slide. And do we have a poll going now, it looks like?
Before we jump into the next slide here, if you guys could all vote on these, we have a few polls as we go along here. If you guys could all fill them in right now, we'll gather the answers there and kind of tailor it to your guys' answers as well.
And within this poll, if you are already compliant with DFARS, we can definitely help you transition that data into our system. CMMC Level 3 is very similar to the DFARS framework. There's about, I want to say, 17 additional controls that they've added into that Level 3 that most people I speak to are going for. Currently, I know a lot of the Accreditation Bureau within the DoD is pushing people to work off of DFARS. A lot of people I'm speaking to aren't seeing it as a requirement anymore in contracts and are looking to just move ahead with CMMC. So we can really help with either way. If you guys wanted to move forward with DFARS near term, we're actually going to be automating our customers' data from DFARS into the CMMC model we built out. Just on that, we're going to get into it some more here, but we did present that to the DoD right before the pandemic hit down in DC and got some really good feedback on our model, which we'll jump into. All right, are we all set on the poll here?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Looks like we have one company that's currently compliant, 2 that are looking to become compliant in the next 6 to 12 months, and 2 looking to become compliant in the next 3 to 6 months. So as you're looking to become compliant with CMMC, just a heads up for everyone. I know I've gone through this engagement with several different MassMEP clients, and I think it can be a little bit shocking of what you need to put in place to become compliant. So my suggestion would be to move ahead with the baseline assessment of where you're at now. And that's something that we can absolutely help you with. And then get an understanding nearer term before the CMMC requirement starts coming up in RFPs of really what you need to get done and what you're going to need to invest in to become compliant and get certified. There's the results. Derek, do you want to touch on this slide quickly?
Yeah. Let me just move this. So essentially kind of a breakdown with the spreadsheets. a lot of people that we see are working manually through their spreadsheets and not using a tool like ours. So what that can do is, cause way more manual labor, longer process. As mentioned on the left side there, it's manually constructing your reports, so your POAM, anything like that, risk assessment report, anything like that will be mostly manual for people working through spreadsheets. You won't have that kind of guidance that we would be giving you on how to improve your plan and kind of move forward to meeting a better compliance level. And the completion time takes way longer, can take up 2 to 3 months. If you look over to the right side with our CyberStrong platform, we're going to automate the workflow, all the natural language with the controls, make it easier to understand what you're actually putting the info in for. As I mentioned before, the reporting will be all automated for you. So your POAM, SSP, risk assessment will all be built out within the platform. We will give you that remediation roadmap to improve your overall posture score. And the completion time is way more simplified. Only, I've seen it take a couple weeks, if that. We have seen a few people kind of get it out of the way as soon as they can. So week and a half, 2 weeks is usually the ideal time frame there.
Next slide. So this is an example from DFARS of how we break down some of these questions. So anyone who's looking to move forward with DFARS, we'll get a little bit more into the CMMC, how we've built that out in our system as well as we go here. But you can see it's pretty complex coming out of NIST. This is really technical cybersecurity language. Most of the manufacturers I speak to don't have much of a background in this. So we break it down into more easily digestible questions. Our partners who are going to be working on this with you have a much better understanding of this language, but even them and really more technical people I speak to appreciate kind of the pretty clear questions that are just really easily understandable of who needs to answer this and how you should answer it. Next slide.
So just a CMMC, kind of an example of what it would look like in the platform when you were going through answering all these questions. This is what it's going to look like under a certain control. So if you see down below there, we're going to give the explanation of the certain control. And what you're going to do is enter your current score, where you guys currently stand with this certain question, and then where you guys would need to be. So yes or no, pretty simple. You can kind of go through on the right side there. You can base the scoring off of any model that you guys would want to do, and then the maturity model that it will fall under as well.
And within this, you can see next to C000 or 001, there's L3 there. So we just input what level you want to be at, and then you can see that target level on the right side showing L3. This specific capability within CMMC is currently at a level 1. Because that question number 2, if you see AC.2, that's referring to a level 2 control or practice here. And because we've answered no, we have an automated scoring capability to show you, okay, we're still at level 1 here. And then we'll reflect that in the dashboard, which I believe is on the next slide, if you want to move on. To see, so you can see here your current scores and target scores on the right in that kind of spider chart. Top right within the control families, we have each of those capabilities broken out. So you can see within access control right now we're at a level 1. Of course, if you're going for a level 3 certification, your target level is going to be level 3 for all of these. So within access control, you have a level 1 and you need to improve that. And then you can also see within maintenance, you're currently at level 0. So you need to improve that. So really the light blue is going to be the pieces that'll light up for you guys and show you from a high level where you need to improve. And then Derek, do you want to touch on maybe the risk report down there as well?
Yeah, so that's basically just, it's going to be a quick graph kind of showing where you guys currently stand. So everything you see up in that chart above, down below will be kind of thrown into the total risk in the chart right down below. It's a little cut off there from the picture, but just kind of a high overview kind of breakdown of where you guys are currently standing with each one, and just, kind of give an easier visualization onto where you guys currently stand.
Cool. Next slide. I'll let you take this one, Derek, if you'd like.
So right here, we kind of have a breakdown of what I was mentioning before, all the reports that are built out within the platform. So your POAM, SSP, risk assessment, anything that you guys would need, all built out right here on this page. So like I mentioned before, it's all automated as you're going through the platform. So it's a living, breathing environment. And it's easier to generate ports for auditors or vendors. We do have, that capability to be able to send it out. If you look in that picture down below, you see the download tab. Just quick click right there, and you can send it on your way, nice and easy. It won't take as long as time as the manual labor of actually building it out and then getting it sent out. Just kind of eases up the whole process, makes it a lot more simple for everyone trying to get this out as soon as possible.
All right, next slide.
So we do have another poll here. If you guys want to fill this out too. So what percentage of your company's businesses is DoD? So if you guys can fill that out, we'll take a minute or two here as you guys fill that in.
And while we're taking that poll, I'll just give a little more insight into the reporting for you guys. So there's a little bit of a difference with CMMC because you need to be compliant at time of the audit. The plan of action and mitigation is being removed. So that was built out through DFARS, really saying, hey, we're at this stage right now, and this is our plan to improve. So that was accepted previously. Now you're going to have to just deliver a system security plan as well as a risk assessment. Because you can't say we're getting there with CMMC. You have to have all of this, all of these controls put in place. And it looks like we got some information here. So kind of all over the board there, but it looks like the most common is 0 to 25%, 26 to 50%, 51 to 75%, and 76 to 100%, all with one response there. And I know Tom may have mentioned it, but I believe that the percentage you need to get that additional grant, which I think is a great opportunity for everyone involved here, really lightens the load for you guys in terms of a capital investment and getting this done. That additional 5,000, I believe it was, and Tom, feel free to jump in here, but I think it was around 20% of your business needs to come from DoD. So this is an example of a plan.
That's correct. Sorry, that is correct. Between 10, minimum 10, 20 would be great.
Awesome. So this is an example of a POAM. As I mentioned, it's kind of going away, and we can keep moving through this. This is an example of your system security plan report. So this is actually something we built out specifically for CMMC. So because the maturity model is a little different than your typical cybersecurity or privacy frameworks and assessments, we do have over 50 in our system, but we got our start in DFARS. So CMMC is really a big focus for us. A lot of our customer base is using this platform for DFARS and looking at CMMC. So as I mentioned, we built this out, and we actually built this system security plan specifically for the CMMC use case, where we're breaking down. You can see the capability there, your practice maturity, what level you're at, and then your process maturity as well. You can also see at the top, we don't have this data in this specific demo set of data I pulled this from, but you can see who the control's assigned to, the due date, what your workflow state is, which is either to do, in progress, needs review, or done within our system, when this was last updated, and then your compliance evidence that you guys have attached there, and any notes, additional notes that you might have. And then finally, you got your risk assessment report here, which is the other deliverable. As Derek mentioned, it's really easy to download these, and you can download them as an Excel or a Word document for the system security plan if you guys need to edit anything, but we also have PDF versions if you want to just shoot it off and not have to worry about it. Next slide. Derek, you want to cover this?
So right here, as I mentioned before, our AI-backed remediation plans. This is kind of the roadmap I was touching on that will kind of lead you into a way of improving your overall posture and score. So it's patented AI machine learning. It's lowest cost, highest impact, prioritized remediation plan. So essentially, what we'll do is, if you kind of look in the picture down below, you'll see your low, medium, and high with the number of list controls below that. So if you click on the list of controls, it will pull up the controls that were most impactful to improving that score. So we will give you, the easiest route to get there, the cheapest way, kind of improving that overall score, and hopefully get you the quickest and cheapest way to reaching your compliance level that you need.
Yeah, and just for an example, this is based off of NIST methodology of people, process, and technology. So with these frameworks and cybersecurity kind of compliance, a lot of it's based around process, policy, things that aren't that difficult to put in place, like access control, where you may not necessarily need to spend a lot of money on a firewall. So that's what we're highlighting here, is kind of the easier wins initially. And we'll have our partners kind of speak to you around this and show you and present to you at the end of how you're going to get to that compliance once you've run this assessment to understand where you are. So just some Cybersaint MassMEP. I think we've covered most of this, but state funding with Express and general grants, and now Tom's getting even more grants, which is awesome. And then we've come in and worked with MassMEP for a while now, so we've really kind of smoothed out the process here for these assessments, and we have some partners that are really familiar with the platform, familiar with working with MassMEP customers, and have a pretty well-oiled machine around getting this done. So we're thrilled with the relationship. It's been great on both ends. And I see we have another poll here if anybody wants to add in here.
Yeah, so just to get an idea if you need CMMC, if you're not sure, if you don't need it, looking to learn more, kind of just a rough idea of where you guys currently stand right now.
And if you guys have questions around your access to controlled unclassified information, which is ultimately how you define what level you need to be at for CMMC, feel free to reach out to MassMEP or us, and we can get an expert on the phone with you to kind of have that conversation. I think a lot of people are in that phase right now of trying to understand what their access to CUI is and where they need to end up landing.
All right, so kind of what Pat mentioned before, we do have a whole list of partners that will be working with you guys through this process to kind of ease up the workflow and kind of guide you through all this. We do offer on-site. Well, I'm not sure exactly how that's working right now with everything going on, but you will have experts assigned to you and kind of help you out through this whole process and getting you, kind of through the whole CMMC compliance process.
All right. Finally, just a customer testimonial, some MIDA Technologies. Someone I worked with through MassMEP had a great experience getting this done, going on site for them. Obviously, during the current climate, we've been doing a lot more virtual meetings, but this is a great engagement with us, and we were happy to get a customer testimonial from Rick Orlando, their VP of Strategy over there.
Just to chime in for a sec, for the people who are unsure about whether or not they need CMMC certification right now, essentially, if you're in the defense supply chain at pretty much any level, you're going to need CMMC certification at some point. Level 1 is very basic. Typically, it's if you only have federal contract information, but not any actual CUI, which is the controlled unclassified information. But still, you need to have certification in some way, shape, or form to play in that space. And the level 1 if you can get away with level 1 certification, they're talking in the several hundreds of dollars to get the cert, and the actual remediation effort shouldn't be a heavy lift because it's pretty basic security hygiene. Do you have other questions from the attendees?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, would you be okay if we open up the mics and let everybody, if they have questions, that work? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, so give us a second. Let us open up everybody's mics. We have to go through a process, and then you should be able to, your mics will open, and then you might have to actually click on your mic to open it up. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to just speak up. Now's the time.
Or raise your virtual hand.
Okay, all the mics are open, so if anybody has any questions.
All right.
Hey, this is Chuck Coakley. A question for Cybersaint, please. So in levels 1 through 5, depending upon how invested you are in keeping your DoD work, I'm a project manager with MassMEP, and I've dealt with a number of clients with 27001, and most of my clients do less than, say, 20% of their work for DoD. If they were to go with Cybersaint, they would be needing to engage in, let's just say, to get to level 3. Would you work with them for, say, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, and then help them kind of be able to operate on their own? Or would you recommend that they stick with you for a longer period of time to validate that they are able to operate on their own?
That's a great question. So my suggestion would be to work with us through the grant funding that Tom's gotten to get a 3-month subscription and get that help from our partners and experts to understand where they're at and what it's going to take to get up to compliance. From that point, I think if they have a very small amount of DoD work, maybe and it's going to take a lot of investment, then maybe they want to run some kind of a cost benefit analysis of moving forward and managing their posture off of the CyberStrong platform. I think for any companies that are going to keep their DoD work and continue to look to improve their cybersecurity posture and get audited in the future, you'd look to continue to work off of the CMM or the CyberStrong platform to manage that, because you'll have all your data in there, and as we discussed, it automates your reports and shows you kind of roadmaps to improve. But I do know that for some organizations, it may be a heavy lift, and if they're really only have like 5% of their revenue coming in from the DoD, then it might be something they want to consider not bidding on those contracts in the future.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, is there anybody else that would like to ask any questions or have any input?
Doesn't appear to be.
All right, well, that means you guys did a great job with your presentation.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this.
And you covered everything. So thanks for asking your question, Chuck. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, so when we thank everybody for joining us this afternoon now. So it's a great time for everybody to go off and get your lunch. And at the end of this, you'll actually receive a link from MassMEP asking that you can please complete an evaluation. The evaluations are extremely important to us. At MassMEP, it helps us in our continuous improvement in making sure that the workshops, the webinars, the trainings that we are providing out to all of you in the audience are what you're in need of right now. So take about 5 minutes, if you would please complete the evaluation for us. It's a link. It's real simple. Yeah, a couple questions. I think there's only 9 or 10 questions on it. It does help us a lot, and we really appreciate the feedback. So thanks everybody for joining us today. Thank you to Patrick, Derek, Tom, and Rich for presenting the information. And if you need any further information, you can always go to massmep.org, and you can find the information for the CMMC on there and direct contacts. And we also will be able to, if you need to connect with one of us, you can connect with us directly. And then if we need to put you in contact with Patrick or Derek, we can do that as well. So thanks everyone. Have a great afternoon. And if you have more interest in this, we do have another one coming up in September, or if there's something that maybe somebody from within your organization you feel needs to hear more about, you can join us for that, as we'll be holding again in September, and it'll be the same panel. So hopefully we'll see everybody again soon, but have a great afternoon.
Great. Thanks, Haley.
Thank you, Haley.
Everyone.